But sometimes things get turned around and no one's spared. All hands look out below. There's a change in the status quo. Gonna need all the help that we can get. According to our new arrival, life is more than mere survival. We just might live the good life yet.
Greetings, fellow humans, which is something I totally am and not a vampire. And welcome back to Ramblings, an unrepented geeking podcast. As always, I am your host, Shaun, and I have decided, well, you know what, in honor of something really special from one of my favorite shows, I'm going to pick up the gauntlet. I'm going to do daily reviews again. Why on earth would I attempt to do a daily review while I am still attempting to get used to my new job, which is putting all sorts of stresses on my life that I haven't had in years? Why? Because I'm an idiot. Yeah, no, really, that's pretty much the answer. Seriously, though, I'm going to be doing reviews each day this week of Stakes, the new Adventure Time miniseries. If you haven't heard, this is an 8-part miniseries that is starting airing this week. Its first episode aired yesterday, which was Monday, November 16th, with the first 2 parts. This is an 8-part series, and when I say parts, by the way, in typical Adventure Time fashion, each part is around 12 minutes in length, which basically means it's the typical length of a typical Adventure Time episode. They're just airing them in half-hour chunks across 4 nights, and as such, after watching this morning the first part of Stakes, I felt like I had some things to say, and since I have a show where I can say things, hey, I could just wait till the end of the week. And to be fair, I am going to do a compilation episode of all these different reviews on Channel Awesome this weekend. So if you don't want to keep up daily, or if you like to watch things with some video, because that version will have video, though, you know, nothing too fancy, just clips from the show and what have you, well, that's your option, okay? But for those of you who want to stick with me daily, let's have some fun. These aren't going to be as long as my normal episodes of Ramblings for what I hope are obvious reasons. I'm already doing these daily, people. What do you want from me? Do you want blood? Do you want blood? Because, you know, that'd be kind of appropriate, considering this is all about Marceline the Vampire Queen. Yes, Marceline is the focus of Adventure Time Stakes, if the title didn't give it away. And, well, I don't think I'm the only fan who got really excited when rumors of this thing first started, you know, making their way across the net. For those wondering why do an Adventure Time miniseries, I think the real answer is basically Over the Garden Wall. No, really, that was a pretty damn big success for Cartoon Network, and since then, in addition to Stakes, they've also commissioned Long Live the Royals, a separate miniseries from another former Adventure Time creator or slash, you know, cartoonist, all that stuff. So I think that what we are seeing here is the results of Over the Garden Wall's success, and I, for one, am not complaining, because Stakes makes for an interesting experiment for the show. Because while Adventure Time has certainly done ongoing storylines before, they have done multi-part episodes before, they've basically kept to 2-3 parts. And generally, the storyline of the show stretch out over long gaps. It's not unusual to go many episodes, without checking back in on a particular character or storyline. This is different. This is a focused event. Honestly, this feels a bit like, I suspect by the end, if you sit down and you watch all 8 parts together, it's going to feel a bit like an Adventure Time movie, but hopefully they've paced things correctly so it doesn't feel too awkward, and I will have to say from the first 2 episodes, they're off to a great start. So, without any further ado, let's dive into the episodes themselves. Part 1 of Stakes, Marceline the Vampire Queen. Basically, this is the setup episode. This is where we lay out what's going to be driving a lot of the stuff going forward, and yes, it's great. We start with a new opening sung by Marceline voice actress Olivia Olson, and it's nice to get some new animation with that. It really helps mark Stakes as something special, something unique. As for the episode itself, essentially we've got a couple things going on. One, Marceline has decided she's had enough of being a vampire, and so she approaches the exiled Princess Bubblegum about finally completing an experiment she'd apparently been working on for a long time that would restore Marceline to her non-vampire self. I hesitate to say human because Marceline has never been exactly human, but we'll get to that. Meanwhile, out in the farmlands of Ooh, something evil has stirred, and a whole host of animals and farm animals have gotten their blood drained and are slowly being turned into vampires. And since, as far as anybody knows, Marceline is the only surviving vampire, although I guess that depends on if we count the comics in continuity. I'm guessing they don't, and that's fine. The comics can be their own thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out some of the excellent Marceline and Bubblegum miniseries that Boom Comics have been putting out. You will not regret it if you've never read them. But anyways, yes, a vampire is stalking the farmlands, and the citizens of this particular little town have had enough. They try to get Jake and Finn to deal with it, and Jake is being his normal... Well, even for him, no, not normal. He's being a bit of a jerk this episode, and basically, they think Marceline did it. And as it turns out, even Marceline isn't sure what's going on. She has a strange dream after the experiment, and she wakes up out in the farm fields, and it's possible she's been doing the draining. At the same time, she's feeling weak, she's feeling weird. Finn and Jake go off and track down what appears to be the actual source of the attacks, only to return to the town and see that the villagers have formed an angry mob and tied up Marceline right in the direct path of the rising sun. And the episode comes to an end with the death of Marceline? Yeah, okay, no, look, I don't really think it's a spoiler to say no, Marceline does not die in the first episode of the miniseries dedicated to her. I know this is Adventure Time, but even they wouldn't do that. But still, this was a good start to this series. As I said, this is the stage setter, but it does an excellent job of that. And if you've never watched Adventure Time before, you're going to be a little lost. I'm going to be honest. This miniseries does not try too hard to catch up any potential new viewers, probably under the safe assumption of, if you haven't watched Adventure Time, why on earth are you seeing this? I mean, I guess you might think it's a good jumping on point, and it's not really. It's not terrible. Okay, you definitely get some information over these first two episodes about Marceline, but a lot of the backstory about all the other characters, including Simon, and we'll get to him in episode 2, that's all just left assumed that you already know what's going on. So, this is not a great entry point for Adventure Time newbies. But oh, is it a wonderful treat for longtime fans, or even for lapsed fans who have kept up at least tangentially with what's been going on in the world of Ooh. There's a lot of fun stuff, there's great humor, there's some good action, beats, brief as they are, and more than anything, I like the focus on making sure we remember that Marceline, who can often be, a fun, crazy character, has her deeper, more thoughtful side as well, and we really get to see a little bit of that come out over the course of this episode, and we're left with a great cliffhanger, even if, obviously she's not going to die, but that doesn't make it any less of a great cliffhanger, showing that they are indeed treating this like a proper, ongoing, serialized story. Alright, let's talk about episode 2. This is the one people have been really waiting for, I suspect, for a very long time. It is titled Everything Stays, and this is basically more of the background and history of Marceline, including, for the first time, we get to see her mother. And she's actually voiced by Marceline's own voice actress, which is a really lovely touch. It gives it this extra kind of poignancy. And this entire episode, this is it. This is it. For Adventure Time fans, this is going to be a big deal. We get to see more of the pre-Ooh land of Ooh. We get to see more of the aftermath of the nuclear war, the mushroom war that has long been the backstory of this series. We get to see the actual moment where Simon left Marceline behind. And don't think I didn't see what you did there, show. Don't think I didn't see you riffing on one of the most emotional moments in this show's history. And then pulling a little joke. Oh, you evil bastards. I love you. I love you. The way you... Yeah. But okay. Seriously, though, we get to see the moment where those two split. And it is very sad. I mean, they don't overdo it. They don't try and make it too melodramatic. But they also don't hold back from the fact that this clearly had a really damaging effect on Marceline. Because we see Simon leave her, and she's probably at this point around 12 or 13, I would say. When Simon first found her, it was clear she was probably around 4 to 6. So they've been together for several years, and by this point, Simon's condition has progressed significantly, as we saw in the video way back in the episode that first revealed Adventure Time, first revealed Simon's condition and the truth of the Ice King. And yes, if you haven't been following Adventure Time, you're probably completely confused at what I'm talking about, but I already warned you! I told you, this series is not for newbies, and neither are these reviews. I don't got time to exposition everything. Go watch Adventure Time. It's one of the best cartoons on TV today. You won't be sorry you did. There's lots of wonderful, weird, heartbreaking, hilarious moments awaiting you. So, anyways, we get to see the moment where Simon and Marcy split up, and then we cut, as I said, forward to a few years where Marcy is taking on a vampire, and she kills it, and apparently drains its ability, and it's part of her nature. It seems, at least the implications are, it's part of her nature as a half-demon, because her mother was human. This episode makes that very clear, but her father, as we know, is a lord of, well, basically hell, though it has a different name in Adventure Time. I can't remember what they call it at this point. I'm sorry. It's 5:53 a.m. I've got to get ready for work in about an hour. It's hell, basically, okay? Her father is the demon lord of hell. That's more or less it. And then we cut ahead again a few more years where Marcy stumbles upon a human tribe. And, well, the connections to present-day Uo and to a certain Finn the human are obvious and not attempting to even remotely be subtle. Basically, at first the tribe fears Marceline, thinking she's a vampire, and while she has gained more vampire abilities, she is still able to stand in the sunlight, she is still able to walk in the day, so she hasn't become a true vampire yet, and she manages to befriend the tribe in another lovely Adventure Time touch. Previously in a Simon and Marcy flashback, there was a wonderful moment where when Simon is trying to save Marcy, but uses powers without completely losing control, he starts singing the theme song from Cheers. It's both a wonderfully strange, yet sad and powerful moment, and once again, Adventure Time calls upon a classic TV theme to, bridge the gap between a group of characters. And of course, it's obvious what this song was. We all know what show it's from. What do you mean you don't? You don't know what show it's from? You don't recognize the song at all? Somehow we'll get the good life yet. Come on, it's you don't know, do you? None of you even... You damn kids! I hate all of you! No. I'm sorry, that was unprofessional. You damn whippersnappers. No. The song it's the theme song from Mr. Belvedere. Yeah, you don't know what Mr. Belvedere is, do you? Fine! You know Little Butler from that episode of Steven Universe? Yeah, you've all heard of Little Butler. That you've heard of. Okay, Mr. Belvedere was the show that thing was riffing off of. Basically, a proper British butler comes to help a family, a middle-class family in Detroit in the 80s with life and teach them valuable lessons, yada yada. Look, it was a silly, ridiculous show that we all loved at the time. Doesn't really matter. What have I done? I've gotten off track. Okay, focusing on the episode. So we get to see Marceline bond with these group of characters. Damn it, it's Mr. Belvedere. It's one of an old-time No. Focus, Shaun. Focus. Rant another time. Rant another day. Focus. Okay. Mr. Belvedere! I'm good. So Marceline bonds with the tribe. We see her defeat a powerful vampire a few years later, or at least, a few months later at what point, only for the Vampire King to arrive. At which point, we cut back to present day. We see that Marceline has now become, again, I guess, humanish. She's no longer a vampire, so she survives the sunlight. And just when all seems well, though, we cut back to Jake, who fainted after discovering the animals in the first episode who had been becoming vampires, and was left behind by Finn because, who's got time for Jake shenanigans? Jake wakes up only to see, in a clearing, under the shadows, a group of familiar figures. It's the vampires Marceline slayed, including the king himself. And that is Everything Stays, Part 2 of Adventure Time Stakes. And wow. One of the biggest mysteries of Adventure Time has been the full backstory of Marceline, the Vampire Queen. And while I suspect we still have some more flashbacks to go in the course of this, and even then there'll probably still be at least a few mysteries left unexplored, if for no other reason, show ain't going anywhere. This was a very satisfying, meaty episode filled with revelations, terrific action. I mean, the fight with Marcy and the vampire hordes was just terrific, and a lot of ominous foreshadowing. We get our first glimpse of the Vampire King, and we are left in present day with the sense that very bad things are coming. Very bad things. So, that is the first two part of Stakes, and overall, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. This is exactly what I would hope for. Adventure Time is not my favorite animated series on TV right now. That's probably a two-way cage match to the death between Gravity Falls and Steven Universe. But I do love Adventure Time. It would be in my top 5 list, and if I ever made a top 10 all-time animated series list, it would be a serious contender. But I will admit at times the anarchic nature of Adventure Time, where it deliberately will swerve when, zig when you expect it to zag, can get a little frustrating. Sometimes I wish they would just, buckle down and just give us a focused, multi-part storyline. Just really dig into a particular story and go all out. And lo and behold, I have gotten my wish. And I'm really happy for that. Those who feared that trying to do a more focused, driven 8-part storyline might rob Adventure Time of its weirdness, of its sense of humor, of the strangeness that is such a hallmark of this series, need not worry. For the love of God, they used the theme song for Mr. Belvedere as an important plot point. Nuff said. And then, of course, there's the character designs, what we've seen of the vampires, both in the past and in the present. It looks like we're going to be getting some interesting figures who are going to have some interesting voice actors, FYI, including Rebecca Romaine, Billy Brown, Paul Williams, Bew Billingsley. So, this is definitely going to be a packed, full episode, and I'm very excited to see where we go from here. We know that there's going to be, what's going to be driving the episode is basically the battle against the now risen vampire lords, is how I probably would describe them, because that's the sense we're certainly given. 5 of Marceline's greatest foes. That's how they're described, by the press material released for this miniseries, and it's interesting. It seems fairly clear that the Cure is what has released them. And so, if I had to guess, I suspect we're going to see Marceline become a vampire again by the end of the episode, but still, maybe not. Adventure Time is not afraid to completely shatter its status quo, as the series itself shows right now, with the fact that Bubblegum is no longer, Princess of Ooh, and that we have the King of Ooh who has taken her place, and he's even literally taken her place in the opening credits for Stakes. So, status quo isn't always God in Adventure Time. There's a lot of different ways this could go, and I'm very curious. I really like a lot of the little touches. I love the moments between... Look, Marceline and Bubblegum have been a popular ship for a while now, and there have been lots of teases from the creators, and there's a definite sense that if they could, they would acknowledge them as romantic exes, basically. But, this being what it is, they can't quite go that far yet. Maybe this is going to be the series where that finally happens. If it is, it hasn't happened yet, but there is still a really lovely moment in the first episode between Marceline and Bubblegum, where you have to remember, we've found out that Bubblegum is immortal, that she has been alive for a very long time, almost as long as Marceline. And the sense that, whether they were romantically involved or not, they've clearly known each other for a very long time. And it's fascinating that Bubblegum, says how, if you do die, I'll be the one who puts you in the ground. And it might sound morbid, but the way it's played, it's actually very sweet. And you can see that Bubblegum is a little conflicted. She doesn't let it out. She doesn't say anything to Marceline, but that the weight of what she might be losing does weigh on her. And I suspect the show will continue to explore that. At least I hope this series does. We will see. Certainly, I fully expect Bubblegum to continue to be a big part of this. She's actually been added to the, by name to the altered opening credits. So clearly she has a big role to play. And they've been setting up a lot of the elements of this for a while between her. Like, there was an episode earlier, just a couple weeks, this last week or 2 weeks ago, which very much feels like a prologue to this, where featuring, Marceline and bubblegum, and it was a bubblegum-focused episode, but it definitely feels like a bit of a setup for what's going on here, just in terms of where the different characters are. So, overall, Stakes is off to a great start. I'm very excited to see where it goes from here, and I love the fact that, even though this is technically, they're considering Stakes part of Season 7, so Adventure Time is into its 7th season. It's done well over 100 episodes, even if you go just by, even if you combine things together, and yet it is still prepared and willing to take chances like this. And that speaks well of the show, and that speaks well of where it's going. I know a lot of people were, as I talked about in my review of the opening of the season in a previous episode of Ramblings, I know a lot of people were frustrated by some of the more esoteric turns, even by Adventure Time standards, of Season 6, that people wanted more of a focus on the main characters, more of the focus on adventure stuff, more of just a straightforward storytelling a bit, perhaps. And while I don't necessarily think they have to do that, and I'm glad to see that, for instance, we've gotten already in Season 7 episodes as weird as BMO fighting with his own reflection, this will be more in the lines of what people want. This is clearly much more focused, much more plot-driven, much more driven by the characters who we all know and love. This is going to be clearly a Marceline, Bubblegum, Jake, and Finn-focused storyline. So, if that's what you've been wanting, and if you're a bit of a lapsed Adventure Time fan, I definitely recommend you come back for Stakes. You won't be sorry. There's already been music, and laughter, and weirdness, and strangeness, and heartbreak, and dancing, and fighting, and all the kinds of things that you love in Adventure Time. And if you're a newbie, don't start here. Go on a wiki and see what are the most important episodes and watch those first, because honestly, you'll be completely lost otherwise. Okay, that's going to do it. Please come back tomorrow for my reviews of episode 3 and 4 of Stakes, Vamps About, and The Empress Eyes. Ooh, that last title is particularly ominous considering we know that we heard that name mentioned in this episode. But, anyways, that is my thoughts on the first 2 part of Stakes, and I will see you here again tomorrow. And in the meantime, you can head on over to unrepentantgeeking.com to check out more stuff from me, including my just published review of Stella Glow for 3DS, the last game ever developed by now closed Japanese developer Image Epoch. And you can also stay tuned if you want for more to come, obviously. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/unrepentantgeeking. Even just a couple dollars a month would help me with keeping the lights on around here, keeping things going. Every little bit helps, and if you can't do that, please at least spread the word. Please spread the word and share this on Facebook, on Twitter. Leave a rate and review on iTunes. That can really help spread the show. Just, tell people about it, please. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. All right, until next time then, for Ramblings and Unrepentant Geeking, I'm Shaun Cronenfeld, wishing you all long days and pleasant nights.